like all big emerging markets, COVID surfaces all the contradictions and all the weaknesses. So as a state grappled with how to handle it and how to manage itself and the economy, all the contradictions come to the surface. So that's where many of the problems have come from. We lost 1 million formal jobs. Companies shut down, small businesses shut down. So I'll come back to that theme. It surfaced all the problems. The second thing is that the government managed it, and they do. This is what happens here. We've got quite sophisticated government. On paper, they managed it well, but they don't have execution capacity. So we had a lockdown system, and business and government partnered on how to develop. I was involved with this, the stages of lockdown and the levels and the rules of lockdown. And that was pretty well done. And for the first time in many years, business and government got together and made all sorts of partnerships to try and manage this situation, which they did pretty well. The problem is execution and implementation. And so the economy was very badly damaged. We went to pretty hard lockdown. We didn't dilly-dally Brazilian-like. We have very good medical advisors. They're top of the game of virology. They linked with the best institutes in the world, and they said, this is what you're going to do. And the politicians took the advice of the experts, in spite of much popular disagreements. But we're a non-compliant society because the state has never been functional. You know, in Germany or Australia, the government says this is what you'll do, we do it. Not here. So mask wearing was quite limited. All masks were below the nose. We had the spread of the wave. It wasn't that bad, but it was pretty damaging. And then we began to open up, and the economy then had to open up, and we then regulated the opening in different stages and so on. We're now entering a third wave, which looks quite serious. The vaccination, we procured J&J in big numbers and then found that was condemned. We had Pfizer, and then we had COVAX, which is a joint project. And South Africa has represented a lot of African countries in forums to try and get more vaccines. Theoretically, we have enough vaccine, but the rollout's been appalling and the administration has been worse. So very weak administration. So we all had to register. So I was in the early wave, and we registered, and then we waited and waited, and then finally we got no message arrived, and we heard you could walk in. So you could walk in and get vaccinated, which took 40 minutes in my case, and I had the first Pfizer vaccine. But no one got notified. So the administrative system didn't work very well. We've just suspended our Minister of Health because he apparently was involved in some dodgy business. So we now are we've moved up in the last week to a higher level of lockdown, not very serious, but it may get worse in the next few months. The economic impact was disastrous. Mines had to shut down, manufacturing had to shut down, and then we went through all the things you went through. Everyone Zoomed and worked at home, and you know, we now have Zoom towns where youngsters don't come to the office. My daughter's been working in London for 6 months. She's never met her colleagues. So that's how it is. We adapted, we're agile. We're quite an agile society, and we're quite a resilient society. We are a get on with it kind of place. People don't throw the towel in here. It's a tough place. But we now really are taking strain because the poverty has surfaced at a huge scale. We had an emergency food crisis. Business played the driving role in making sure people had enough food. And NGOs, we have strong NGOs here, spontaneously came along to make sure that people were fed, and they were. I was in a project, we fed 70,000 people for 3 months, and I raised that money just through companies, and we got people on the ground to do this. So South Africa tends to bounce back at the last minute. We're not well organized, but when you push us against the wall, then we sort of come back. As I mentioned, our hospitals, we built some military hospitals temporarily. They weren't used. So now we have no capacity or very little, as the third wave is now beginning to hit us, and we're losing. You know, I've lost at least 10 friends to COVID. So it's in our face, it's real. There's partial compliance. That's how I see it. And of course, paradoxically, as you said, the stock market, we've got a very open economy. People like investing here. Short-term money comes in because our interest rates are quite high. Our stock market's much smaller than it was, but it's a pretty functioning, well-managed stock market. So the stock market's gone up, created this illusion of a turnaround. Manufacturing's come back, mining has come back, and we've had fantastic agriculture. We will be sending you all our oranges. They're on their way. 200 million cartons of oranges are coming to give you vitamin C when your winter comes. So we've got a very sophisticated elements of the economy, and insurance and banking, and many. These have responded. Service companies are getting back to some form. We will not get back to the size of the GDP that we had in 2016 for another 3 years. When you have a population that's growing, because our growth rate's about 1.8%, your growth rate is less than your population growth rate. You are constantly increasing the decline in per capita income. We have to get the growth rate up. We're all working on this. I'm meeting the presidency later today about how to get domestic investment going. So, you know, the business community and government are working together. Labor is working. Everybody's working at the leadership level to try and recover the economy. Let me end with this on this and then take questions. South Africa is very vulnerable. It's not modernized fast enough. Its infrastructure and digital is weak. It's not good enough. We were brilliant on cell phone rollouts. We haven't built broadband. So, and it's high cost broadband that we have. So we're behind. And I fear that in the global competitive dynamics, South Africa is not moving fast enough into the fourth industrial revolution. On COVID, you know, so we have a daily register, very little breakdown of analytics. So I can only tell you from word of mouth, actually, and that of course is a bias because it's mainly middle class. There's been a surprising, you know, if you look at the stats in the rest of Africa, it is quite surprising, the low death rates. And I don't know what the explanation is. We are in a fog. We really don't know why. So in townships, what's happened is an increase in poverty. Many people who were factory workers or worked in people's homes or worked in the informal economy, ran small businesses, have been hit. Yes, it may be the younger population. You're quite right. Our demographics are not Japanese or European. They are the, you know, the beehive looks like this, and that may be part of the resistance. But you know, older people are dying from COVID, and there's no doubt about that. Our public hospitals are much better than the rest of Africa, and way worse than what you would expect in Europe. We've got some brilliant doctors and some great hospitals. We've got a strong private hospital sector. But again, that's for elites. We're now trying to create a national health system. It's been talked about for 10 years. It will take another 10 years. But we all agree there must be a national health system that gives access to all citizens to healthcare. It's not like that at the moment. So there has been a new social compact of a kind, which is that the government has been far more open-minded than before. And it's acknowledged many of its errors. And there is an openness. The doors are open. And we created a new set of institutions to talk to government, to partner on vaccines, to partner on managing the economy, and to generate domestic investment, this project I'm involved with. So that's a change in climate, 180 degrees from the previous administration. That's very good news. The problem is that at the bottom of the pyramid, it's not really visible and it won't deliver in time. So the tension of the way forward is structural. It's back to the fundamental of how do you restructure the role of the state, the role of business, the role of society into a new kind of contract. I do think the asset South Africa has is organically, we actually are getting on with it. On the streets, engaging with people, the sort of social capital is there. People don't want to burn the place down. Some do, but the majority are conservative. That's why their voting support remains consistent in spite of performance, is that from a voting point of view, they're loyal. South Africans are very humanistic and very forgiving. And it's amazing how much capital there is. I would say our people in a way are better than our leaders. And the leaders now need to take advantage of that broad goodwill. We want our children to be educated. We want them to have a job. We want to improve our own stakes, as everybody does everywhere. I think the foundations are there socially. And there's a long, long journey of learning. No whites speak an African language. We've been here 300 years, but we can't speak the languages of the majority of people. That sort of thing will take generations, but it will come. There will be immigration. There will be isolation and alienation for sure, because people are scared. There's a lot of crime in this country. Now, people are so poor that there's both formal and informal crime. It's Mexican in a way, and that alienates people. And people have lost a lot of respect and trust for the government, but it's coming back now. And I don't think it's a knockout, but I do think it's a recovery. So I see years of reform ahead, and with a second term for the president, I see better dividends, but they're slow in coming. The miracle years of, getting it done in a weekend are over.